The concept of null values is a common source of confusion for data engineers. And sometimes we get confused thinking that the null is the same as empty string. This is not the case. So, how Snowflake handles null values when loading CSV data files into Snowflake tables using copy command? Does it treat empty string also as null values? Or if CSV file has field values as text null, only uppercase, then only Snowflake will treat them as null values. Or to make sure null values are correctly treated, Snowflake has a special parameter in copy command. If the data file has a lot of null values, does it load fast or slow and consume more or less credit computes? What if Snowflake table column has not null constraint? Will the copy command fail if the data file has null fields? So, if you are not fully aware about these questions and scenarios, stick until the end of this video. We will demonstrate how null field data loading works in Snowflake, and you will know the answer of all these questions and scenarios and will be able to apply in your development activities. Welcome back to my channel Data Engineering Simplified, and to this how to load data into a Snowflake series for true data professionals like you. I am assuming that you already have SnowSQL CLI installed, else you would not be able to practice all the exercise done in this video. You can download all the data files and SQL script from my website. Refer the link below in the description section. In chapter 9, we will practice many interesting things about null data handling, including multiple null text representation and compute cost and the performance as listed in the tree map using Snowflake free trial edition. There are a lot of exciting features to be learned about data loading into Snowflake, and this playlist has already covered many important and practical use cases. I hope they are helping you in your day-to-day data development activities. Feel free to subscribe to this channel so you will be notified when new videos are published. Before we jump into Snowflake Snowsite to practice all this exercise, let's briefly talk about null and its SQL representation. Conceptually, null means a missing unknown value. For example, the following two statements are completely different. The meaning of the first SQL statement can be regarded as phone number is not known, and the second SQL statement can be regarded as the person is known to have no phone, thus no phone number, and represented as empty string. Slash followed by capital N in a data file is synonym of null in SQL system. So when this character appears in a data file, it will insert null values in a Snowflake table. We will also see if Snowflake consider null text with different cases like upper, lower, or a mixed, and treat them as a null in SQL while inserting them into a table or not. Let's create a user table which has username, email, and date of birth, and we are going to create a standard file format. Table is created. File format is also created. This is a sample file which is already loaded in my user stage location. Let's quickly review the file. Name of the CSV file is 01 user sample with null values. If you look, it is a comma separated values, and let me search for null. If you notice, I have a lot of null text available. Some of them are uppercase, some of them are mixed case. Okay, and this is the file I'm going to load and see the behavior. How does it work? So user stage shows that I have the file which is 688 as a size. Let's run the copy command to load the data into the user table from this CSV file. I have not used any other parameters except on error equals to continue. It is using a CSV file format. So total 12 record, no error. It took roughly 3 seconds to load the data. So all the rows loaded, and let's review the data. So I can see from ID 1 to 12 all are available. So if I look into the ID 2 and ID 3, I can see null values. ID 4 is also having a null values. ID 6 and 7 are also having a null as a date of birth. Let's go back to the file and check it. So wherever I have an empty field, that has been treated as a null in Snowflake by default. Wherever the file has null as a text to represent null value, that has not been treated as a null value. And if you look into line number 6 and 7, where I have a date of birth coming as a null, so 6 and 7, it is treating null. Okay. So all the fields are varchar. If you look into this text, which is little great and it is all lowercase, here the null is actual null. However, in other fields, wherever I have this text null, which is coming in a more darker color, it means the field is having a string null, not actually the SQL null. So a standard file format and copy command do not help to translate null values present in your data file as you expect it to be. So if we replace all the null text, whether it is uppercase, lowercase or a mixed case with /n text in the data file, will that help? Let's see how Snowflake copy command and the standard file format behaves if we make that change in our data file. So let's create a user table with a different name called user \. Now this is a new file which is already there in my stage location. This is a put command which will help you to upload your sample file into a user stage, which I have already done. Let's see how does it look like. So this is exactly the same file, and let's review the file. So you can download the file from my repository and the link is given below. So this is a user sample with /n, and if I change this value, I have not done in every places. On line number 3 and line number 4, I have replaced the middle name with 2 /n. I still have null values in some of the cases. Let's go back to Snowsight. Now let's run the copy command, which will insert data into user \n, and this is user02 file which will be used. I am not changing my file format, and on error it will continue. Let's run this copy command. So it took 2.9 seconds, no error. All the data set loaded without any issue. Run the select query. Let me expand. Now if you notice, wherever I have given \n, Snowflake without any change has treated them as a null values. However, wherever I have a null text available, they are still appearing as a null text, and \n is not treated as a null text. So if your data file is having a \n with escape character and the m should be capitalized, that will be treated as a null by default in Snowflake. So what we have observed that the \n is treated well, and Snowflake handles them as expected while running copy command. However, it has to be strictly capital N, and if you are migrating data from Apache Hive and some other standard databases, you don't need to worry about it, and no special treatment required to pre-process your data file, and it works without any issue in Snowflake. But why to take a chance? Let's see how we can control this copy command more so it generates output as we expect it to be. Snowflake file format has a special parameter called nullIf, and that's what we are going to see in this section. To see the behavior of nullIf, I am going to create a table called null_user_if. Now I'm going to create a file format called csvff null. So in the line number 27, I have a special parameter called nullIf. This is the default value. So even if you do not specify this parameter, Snowflake will automatically take \n as a null character. So let's quickly see how does it behave. So here I'm going to use the file pattern to load all the CSV file available in the location, and let's see how many files I have it. So I have a 2 CSV file in this particular location. Other files are there in different location. Okay. So when I run the copy command, it should say that 2 files are loaded successfully. So it looks like it also treated the empty CSV file, and all the rows are loaded without any issue. Good. So wherever there was \n, it has treated them as a null value. Looks good. Let me put the order. So my second file having ID 13 and 14, and let's look into the file quickly. So this is 13, 14, 15. So 14 and 15 should treat \n as a null value. And that is how it looks like. Good. Let me open my another worksheet. So in the previous part, the nullIf was taking only one text to identify a null value. However, nullIf can take more than one value, and as per the Snowflake documentation, there is no upper limit. However, in this example, I have taken a couple of null. So your data file might have null text which you want it to be treated as a SQL null. So in this scenario, I want all such characters should be treated as a null while loading the data into Snowflake. I am creating a user table with many null if condition, and I'm going to create this particular file format. Both are created successfully. Now let's quickly list the stage. Okay, I have same files. All the dataset is loaded successfully without any issue. Now this time I can clearly see that I do not have any null text available because my null if parameter in the file format has taken care of all the null values. Okay, so if your data file is having a lot of different character which you want them to be treated as a null value in your Snowflake, then you can use null if parameter and add all the text as a list. So I do not see any null string in this table, which looks perfectly fine. So what is the challenge if even the null string gets into a null field? The problem is that if you are doing some kind of a count on a particular table, your count will go wrong if you run queries like not null or null. Okay, and let me show you. So if I'm running middle name is not null in my first user table, you notice here these two results appeared, but that is not the intent. However, if I go to the many null if table and let's see, here it has not brought anything which is having a null value. So that's why the null is very important and has to be treated very seriously. And so what we have learned in the previous part, by having this file format parameter called null if, we can control the null text in our CSV data file and load the data as expected. So in the next part, we would try to see what if you have to consider empty field as a null value, and if you want to control whether it should be considered as a null value or not a null value, how would you do that? So all empty fields, unless otherwise specified, it will be treated as a null in Snowflake. But what if I have to change this behavior? How can I do that? So this is my new file format called file empty null. And here I am specifying a new property which is called empty field as a null. If it is true, all the empty field will be treated as a null, which is a default behavior in Snowflake in file format. And if you make it false, it will not treat empty value as null and empty value will be treated as empty value. However, I would love you to try one thing. If you specify this as a false and if you keep this as an empty, how the data loading works. You can download the file which is given in the description section and you can play with it. However, I would just remove these two lines and will show you the behavior about the empty, true and false. So right now we have overridden the default behavior from true to false and going to load the 03 user file. So I'm creating a user empty table. I'm creating this file format where empty field null is false. Now let's check whether I have this sample file available in my stage location or not. Let's quickly review this in my VS Code. So this is the file 03 user. It has 2n and let's check whether it has any null. It has no null. However, it has some empty field. And last time we have seen the empty fields are treated as a null when we loaded the data. And here also I have the date of birth is missing. There are 3 places where I have empty character plus this is the 4th place. Okay, let's try that out. Now I am using this file format where it is false and let's run this. Okay, so out of 6 rows, everything got loaded, looks good. Now let me run this select query. So what I see here, it has not appeared as a null even though it is empty. And then the 29 and 30, it is not treated as a null. And /n as treated null because that is a Snowflake default behavior. Even though we have not specified /n should be treated as a null in the file format. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I will make the changes here to true. Okay. And I'm going to create another table called v2. This is true and I call it v2. So here it is true. Now let me run this command once again. I am going to insert the same data set in a new table called v2, only change what I have done. Empty field as a null as true, which is a default behavior in Snowflake. Now if you see the difference, empty fields are treated as a null. So if you want your empty field should not be treated as a null, then there is only one parameter which you have to be set as a false. And you can also add null if equals to different null text to be treated as a null in Snowflake. What if my table column has not null constraint and data file has null values? How Snowflake file format and copy command works? Let's see that. Let's create another user table named user not null. And here the email field is marked as a not null. Table is created. I am going to create the same file format what we have used in the earlier section. All the null text fields are marked here. So since this is a default behavior, I will just remove this. This is also I'm removing it. Now let's create this file format with nullif parameter. So now I'm running a copy command which will load the data from this empty CSV file, and empty values will be treated as a null while inserting the data, and let's see what happens. So it took 1.1 second and it says the partially loaded. Out of 5 rows are loaded, and let's read the error. It says that null result in non-nullable column, which was expected. So if I see the data file, here my email is empty. So 28 should not have been loaded. Let's check that. So 25, 26, 27, 28 is missing, 29 and 30 because email is not null column. Looks good. All other columns are treated fairly well. Now the question is that how will you fix it? If you really cannot avoid that, how will you fix that? How will you make sure that you convert into some value? And we have seen in previous chapter that how to use a dollar notation and still load the data using transformation. If you really want to understand more depth about the dollar notation for CSV, Parquet and other file format, I would request you to watch this particular chapter, which gives in-depth understanding about external stage and how to query external stage without creating a table. So let's first truncate the table. I have no data available in the table. It is truncated properly. Now here I am using a copy command with transformation and I'm using a dollar notation. Let's run this. I'm still using the same file format. So it says that unexpected force. Okay, let me fix this. All the 6 dataset loaded. Let's quickly check the result. If you notice row number 28, it says not known. So if you have a situation where you have a not null column available in your table definition and your data file is having a null, you can use this approach to handle situation like that. Let's understand, if we have a large CSV data files having a lot of null text, does it impact the load performance or it works exactly same way? Let's try that out. So this is the put command which I have already executed. Large customer CSV file compressed in a gzip format and data is placed in this particular user stage location. Let's run the list command. So this is close to 21 MB file. And now this is a table called customer large table. So this table is created. Since it is a gzip format, this is what my file format looks like. First, I will not use the nullif parameter to load the data. Now my file format is created without nullif parameter, so I can compare with nullif or without nullif. Now I am going to run the copy command, and that copy command will load this single file. And let's quickly review how this file looks like. So this is the file which has close to 500k records. It is exactly a customer file which you have been using, and it has a lot of empty field, and you can see I have a lot of null text available here. Now let's run the copy command. So it is partially loaded, which is expected, and total 714 errors. Some of them are exceeding limit because it is null, and null is treated as a string. Good, which is expected. And let's see how the data looks like. So customer PK, salutation, first name, last name, gender, and other data set. Good. Now I'm going to create another table called customer large. Now I'm going to use the same file format, but I'm going to recreate this file format and allowing the null if condition. So my file format is created where this text will be treated as a null, including empty string. Good. Now I am going to insert the data into customer null using the same file format. Before I do, I will take a different virtual warehouse just to make sure that virtual warehouse cache is not used. So let me take compute virtual warehouse. So if you see, compute virtual warehouse is still not on. So I have resumed the warehouse using SQL statement. Now I am going to run this copy command and let's see the performance result. It partially loaded, there are some errors. However, it has seen only 9 errors, looks good. Let's go to the query history screen and check how does it look like. And these are the two copy statement. So this is customer large null and second is that customer large. And if you look into the duration, this has taken slightly higher value compared to 5.6. So yes, there could be a possibility that if you have a lot of null values, your performance might differ by 5 to 10%. However, with this 500K record, we did not observe any specific issues. Before we proceed further, I would like to share something with you. Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse is the future. It is such a powerful platform with great features that it will eventually replace many legacy data platforms. I have been adding simple and real life scenario based videos and playlists so we all can learn together. You don't need to buy any expensive courses. All my contents are freely available in this channel. My channel audience really enjoys them. And yes, your success and your feedback really matters to me. So don't hesitate to share your feedback and your comment. We have seen and learned a lot in this playlist. What we haven't seen so far, how to handle different date, time and timestamp formats during data loading. Data loading best practices, do's and don'ts, especially when it comes to CSV data files, and many more interesting topics. And they all are covered in other video available in this playlist. So continue to follow this channel, and if you think this channel content is helping you by any means, do me a favor by subscribing to this channel. Thank you for listening so patiently. Keep learning and keep growing.